A water drop is when a group of volunteers goes into the area along the border, either by foot or by bicycle or other methods, to leave water, food, clothing, and other supplies to reduce the risk of death for migrants crossing the border.
So here locally in San Diego, the two ways that we see are people coming through the desert and people coming through the boats. When they're coming in through the ocean, they face the danger of a boat capsizing, and they can drown, because unfortunately that does happen. When they're coming in through the desert, then they're having to hike for miles and miles and miles through a desert, through the mountains, through the desert, and they can starve. And if they're coming in the summertime, they can die of heat exhaustion.
We do know that people making the crossing in these areas, it's often a multi-day process. In these areas, there are no natural supplies of water. There's no springs or other sources of water, particularly in the desert. Really, it's almost physically impossible along some of these routes to carry enough water to complete the journey, because the distances are so great and the terrain is so rugged. Those are the areas that we focus on, the areas that we know people are crossing and where we know there are very few supplies of water. And so there's an obvious need for this kind of humanitarian aid.
My mom tells me that when I was 3 years old, she brought me to the United States. One of the scariest part was getting into the river. My feet touched the water. I wanted to cry.
Yo le decía, no llores, no pasa nada, estás conmigo, no tengas miedo. Ya cuando andaba cruzando el río, yo me subía al niño en mi estómago. Lo paraba aquí para que él no se mojara, porque el agua nos llegaba bien hasta arriba. Yo sé que él era chiquito, iba a cumplir 3 años, a lo mejor no me entendía, pero pues yo trataba un poquito de decirle que si él lloraba, pues nos iban a escuchar y nos teníamos que regresar para México.
Mi vida en México de niño fue muy triste, porque mis padres eran muy pobres y venían venían de un pueblo donde no tenían una vida, un trabajo o algo así, que siempre nos hizo falta el alimento, comida y zapatos y lugar donde vivir y muchas cosas que sufrimos nosotros de niños.
Before we actually do the group water drops, we do scouting. So small groups of volunteers go and explore different areas along the border, in the mountains, in the deserts, and look for signs of travel. After a while, we are able to really pick up on clues.
I mean, I'm a construction worker. I do wood floors. I would never think of myself going through a map, or planning a search or reading coordinates or things that normal people shouldn't be doing.
And when we find a new area with evidence, we'll do a water drop. We'll go and leave supplies, water, food, and so on. And then we'll circle back a couple weeks later and see what has been consumed.
There's always risk of you can come across wild animals, snakes, coyotes, whatnot.
During the warm months, people getting into trouble because it gets so hot in the desert. it can get hotter than 120 degrees, so incredibly hot in the summertime. And if people don't have enough water, the danger is that they'll die of hyperthermia, meaning that their bodies will overheat. They'll literally cook to death, basically. And it's a terrible way to die. In the mountains, it can get extremely cold in the wintertime. And so there have been tragic cases where people have died of hypothermia, meaning freezing to death. There's also the risk of injury or death.
But people are still desperate. They still want to come.
And unfortunately, almost every day of the year along the California-Mexico border, people making the crossing do get into trouble. And a certain number of those will call for help, either through relatives or directly. The word will get out that somebody is in trouble. Once the word goes out, there's a network of volunteer organizations that focus on search and rescue.
First time that I went to the search and rescue, I didn't really want to do it just because of I didn't know what the risk was of being out there. My kid's mom, her brother was actually lost in the desert for a couple of days, so she pushed me into it. I thought it was gonna be the first and only time I'd be there until I found the first set of remains. He was born in '87 too, same as me. And as soon as I found him, I immediately thought about his family, his kids. I have kids. He could have had kids, So I put myself in his shoes, and that's pretty much what pushed me to keep going on it. It's a 23-year-old kid from Sinaloa. When we found him, he had 3 days with no water or food. The first thing that he told us, he didn't want to die. I was actually the one holding his hand while he was on the ground, and I told him that day, hey, no one's dying, not today, we're here, you're gonna make it out. With the very last energy that he had, he was able to get his phone out and showed me a photo of his daughter, 2-year-old daughter. This kid is about to die, and all he can think about is his daughter and his mom.
No sabía de qué se trataba, pero cuando ya miré de qué se trató, no me importó las llagas que me salieron en los pies, no me importó nada. Se me hizo como una adicción ir al desierto a buscar a mis hermanos migrantes que quedaban perdidos, porque la primera vez que fuimos se encontraron varios osamentas, varios cuerpos. Entonces yo dije, aquí necesitamos hacer más trabajo. Entonces empecé a ir a buscar a los migrantes que estaban perdidos, que se pierden en el desierto.
There's some agents that really don't like what we're doing, So that's another challenge out there. It's you're hoping that you don't come across them and try to hold you back on your work that you're doing,
This crate was full of supplies about 1 hour ago. Border Patrol came through, destroyed all of the supplies, destroyed the crate. All of these bottles of water we left an hour ago. Opened up, poured out all the cans of food. Deliberate sabotage of humanitarian aid by Border Patrol agents.
And look for public property?
Look for abandoned property. No, we find private property all the time. There's illegal immigrants leave behind.
And what do you do with it?
So what do you do with it? We destroy it. We try to clean it up because they leave it.
That's cleaning it up?
No, that's one of the things we try to do. That's right.
That was not cleaning it up.
The most common myths are that anybody can get immigration status in the U.S. Everybody just needs to get in line, and it's a super easy line to get in, and the line moves, and that everybody can do things the right way. That just flat out isn't true. You have to have an underlying visa to even be able to get into a line. A lot of people don't have an underlying visa. There are some categories where a visa number will not become available for you for 100 years. If a line takes 100 years for you to go through, then that's not even a line, because you'll be dead.
You can't get anything for free. We work really hard for it. You know, it's an immigrant cannot go apply for welfare. Immigrant cannot go apply for medical. Immigrant does not apply for anything, you know. They don't qualify for it.
In order to be eligible for food stamps or for cash aid for welfare, you have to have a social security number. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for social security numbers, so they don't get it. But a lot of immigrants do work and get a W-2, so they do have taxes taken out of their paycheck. Now the problem, while immigrants do pay into the system, they don't get anything back.
I wish people would understand that they're just here to work. They want a better life. And I think that we all deserve that opportunity, just having a better life.
The long-term goal of every volunteer is that one day it won't be necessary to do this work. We're living in the state of California, which is the richest state in the richest country in the world. And the idea that many people are dying along the border is simply just an unacceptable reality.
Yo voy a seguir ayudando a mi gente hasta que Dios me diga que ya no pueda caminar en el desierto. Yo seguiré ayudándolos a ellos, a los que se pierden, a los que vienen. Nosotros hemos salvado muchas vidas. Hemos encontrado gente que ha estado a punto de morir. Y nos sentimos muy satisfechos con lo que hacemos. Todos mis compañeros y yo. Y seguiré hasta que Dios quiera.